Chamber for holding today's hearing on such an important topic and for their help and guidance in protecting American manufacturing jobs. I recently introduced the House companion of S-846, the Transit Infrastructure Vehicle Security Act, TIVSA, that would prevent federal transit dollars from being used to procure Chinese transportation assets. The free market principles of capitalism are how the United States of America became the most powerful country in the history of the world. Yet we know non-free market economies and their state-owned enterprises, SOEs, are a direct threat, a national security threat to our country's commitment to fair and open competition. Why? Because SOEs undermine free markets by benefiting from government funding and preferential treatment to undercut the competition. As part of the Made in China 2025 initiative, China has dramatically underwritten its rail and bus industries to the tune of billions of dollars through direct funding and other subsidies. As this committee considers aggressive investments in our infrastructure, we must ensure we are not investing in rail and bus stock that could jeopardize our national security or disadvantage companies based in the United States who operate without the benefit of billions of dollars of direct government funding. I support fair trade, as do all the members in this room and on this committee, but there's nothing fair about forcing American rail and bus stock manufacturers to compete with companies who receive billions of dollars from their government in order to win contracts in the United States. And American tax dollars should not be used in that means. I'm proud to work with a bipartisan, bicameral group to introduce legislation to hold China accountable, because we need to do all we can to support American workers and American-made products. I'd like to thank Representatives Ryan, Holmes, Norton, Garamendi, Crawford, Perry, Granger, and Weber for joining me as original co-sponsors of the House version of TIFSA. And I also want to thank Senators Cornyn, Baldwin, Brown, Crapo, and Shelby for their work in the Senate. Few questions. I'll start with you, Mr. Galloway. Australia's freight rail car manufacturing has all been decimated by what's taken place there with the Chinese SOEs. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And I think I read somewhere that we're looking at 65,000 American jobs could be at risk if we continue down this process. And if you want to take that question, or the general as well.
Our research at Oxford Economics confirms that the freight rail sector, just as a sector within itself.
Just that sector alone?
Just freight rail car manufacturing, that's correct.
Is that direct and indirect jobs?
That would be indirect, direct, indirect, and induced effects, that's correct.
What's the cost, GDP?
The cost of GDP, it's in my notes, it's, I believe it's about $7 or $16 billion. I don't have it on hand, but it's significant.
Can you talk about what the ripple effects are through our economy if we use American tax dollars to fund SOEs, the impact of losing those jobs, losing the $7 billion of GDP, and what the ripple effects would be through our economy?
Yes, so the ripple effects would be substantial, because you're dealing with supply chains that are domestic. So you have suppliers of all sorts of parts and components, systems and subsystems that are manufactured here in the United States. And it's those jobs that are strong middle-class, middle-income jobs in the U.S. that would be displaced as a result of foreign competition that will be coming in and underpricing and taking that market share away from good corporate citizens and producers of products here in the United States.
And Mr. Paul, what's the total level of direct investment by the Chinese government into these SOEs?
The value of the 51,000 Chinese state-owned enterprises is $29 trillion. The amount of money they receive is almost incalculable, because it's through every policy aspect that you can imagine, from preferential tax treatment, low-interest loans, a protected home market, labor and environmental regulations that aren't complied with domestically, a misaligned currency from time to time, and the well-established technology transfer and intellectual property theft. And so, attracting the R&D and development is well below the cost of doing that in the United States. And so, it is the world's largest racket. If China chooses to do that, I guess that's the Chinese government prerogative. But there's no reason whatsoever why American taxpayers should have to subsidize that, so I'm glad that you introduced the legislation. We're proud to endorse it.
So American companies and any companies that follow fair and free trade in a capitalistic process, you invest money, you have revenue, you have expenses, and you have a return to shareholders. Yet these SOEs don't work under those rules, right? There is no obligation for return to shareholders. In fact, by making these massive investments in these companies, they can underprice any other company out there in ways that is absolutely impossible for us.
I know the
here in
gentleman
US and
feels
elsewhere.
very passionately about the issue, but he is over time.